My name is Nick Kastner. I am oversee brand and digital strategy with Forum Communications. Um, and so my contact information is on the screen if you need to contact me after the presentation. But Forum Communications is a full-service strategic marketing agency that focuses on helping brands find their voice in a crowded marketplace. We've been blessed to win a number of awards over the past few years and develop new digital partnerships, including becoming a Google partner and also utilizing tools like Instapage and CallRail. But what we do is a little bit of everything in the marketing space. Of course, brand development, advertising, social media. You'll see even packaging design, web design. And so really whatever it is our clients need. So, but if you have any questions after the presentation, you're more than welcome to contact me. But you're not here to hear about Forum, you're here to hear about brand evangelism through content and social media. And so before we get started, I want to sink a few ships about some of the things that you may understand about social that aren't necessarily true. So truth number one is what you've been told to track and to measure in social media is a lie. So for most of us, you think that these things are important. The number of followers, so the number of people that follow you, the number of times that a business posts, some people track that. Things like likes, comments, and shares and reactions. But in reality, those are just measures of vanity. I don't know that we necessarily make decisions based on those statistics. And so even if you have a lot of Facebook friends, it doesn't necessarily mean that your account is making an impact for your business. While even if you have a handful of followers, we should be grateful for them and to leverage the communication opportunities that we have with those consumers. So truth number two is that blogs, podcasts, and vlogs are not necessarily the future of your business. There are a lot of discussions online about those topics, and marketing agencies talk about them because they can be the newest thing, right? Facebook Live is very popular right now. TikTok's very popular. But it doesn't mean that they work for you. So if everyone told you that COVID-19 was an opportunity for the world to be taken over by lizard people, would you believe it? Because there may be a bunch of people out there saying that. So not everything works for everyone, and just because everyone jumps on board on something doesn't mean it works, but it also doesn't mean it doesn't work. So truth number three leads into that, is that trendy does not mean effective. We all are familiar with TikTok, whether or not you're using it or know someone that's using it, but you're familiar with at least the word. But that doesn't mean that it's a great marketing channel for you. So it's not for everyone. It can be beneficial, but it also cannot be beneficial and could be a waste of time. So if you think about how often you've bought a Super Bowl ad, well, most of you have not. And the reason why, well, that works for some brands and businesses, and sometimes it doesn't. So just because you're creating a viral moment doesn't mean it drives business. So the question is, do those things bring value? So we start this presentation that way because marketers have really become comfortable in just giving you information that makes you feel good about your marketing effort, while it may not, you may still be complaining about not having enough leads or not having enough value out of your marketing effort because you're just looking at things that are vanity. So we'll start with just answering some of these questions around the topic. What is content marketing? Well, content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating, so we have to create something, and distributing, so making sure that people see it, valuable, relevant, and consistent. So those three words are important. So things that are of value, things that are relevant to the end user, and that we do it consistently. So we produce things on a regular basis, content, to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, which is our target, and ultimately to drive profit or value. So these things that would be in content marketing would be like social media, blogging, podcasting, customer newsletters, PR, inbound marketing, like white papers and case studies and that sort of thing for B2B, and even video. So what we have to know is that every marketing channel has a purpose. All marketing channels serve a different purpose. So every marketing medium, so if you think about the reason that you would create a video, may be different than why you create a white paper, or they could be the same, but they all fit somewhere within this funnel or this sales funnel. So content marketing tends to fall in one of these four areas. And the reason why is because people that follow us on social media or that watch our videos or read our blogs or read a white paper or a case study that we've written, the reason they read that, well, there's these four reasons. So one would be because they're becoming aware of us, because we've promoted to them, we've done something, they've saw an ad on social media or saw an ad somewhere, and so, or read an article that we wrote, and so those are the reasons that they first come to us. Second is consideration. So someone would not want to download your white paper unless they're considering using you or trying to get information for you or value from you. And then loyalty and advocacy. So once someone has converted to a customer, then they may follow us on social media. They may advocate on our behalf. So someone posts something negative about the brand, they may come rescue us and respond on our behalf. So that's really where content marketing fits. Like, it's an opportunity for us to drive brand new customers, right? So if we go back to this definition, to attract, right? So brand new, top of the funnel customers, and then retain, which is after conversion, loyalty, and advocacy. Social media, which is part of content marketing, also plays some of that role. Now, I will say for most, social media fits in awareness, loyalty, and advocacy, because most people who follow us on social follow us because they know us or are customers of ours, or they may see an ad. Now, for some fashion, for retail, it's also possible that they could be consideration or conversion. So if you think about going to, let's say, Target.com, you're shopping on Target, you put some things in your cart, you leave the website, well, you go to Facebook, and now you've got an ad for those items. So that retargeting effort for retail or e-commerce is popular, but that's not necessarily what social media always does. So if we know that marketing channels have purposes for all of us, and they're different for everyone based on how your marketing plan is put together, but we do know that marketers seek to create value. We want to create value by driving profit to the business, but we also want to create value by producing products and services that consumers want. So the best businesses create value for consumers that they want to talk about because they're so effective for them. So content and social media can help you leverage your value. So how do they do that? Well, if you think about what we're trying to do, we're trying to produce value. We want to create value for consumers. That's what marketing should do. Then we should do the same on social and in our content. So if you think about the way that you manage social media now, you could be posting a lot of memes because they're easy access. You could be just posting updates about your holiday hours, or that your business is reopening because of this COVID-19 situation. But you could be creating value for the prospect of your existing customers. You could be giving them information that helps them move forward with you. So that's really what we should be doing, is producing that sort of content. And if we can, then we can create brand evangelists, or those that will want to follow us and support us outside of just doing business with us. So brand evangelism is the belief in a product or service so fervently that an individual aggressively promotes it to others without having to be asked. So if you think about those who get really excited about brands, so it could be things just that in pop culture they're excited about, or product that they're really excited about. My wife gets really excited about Disney. So those sort of things, that's brand evangelism, right? When someone asks a question and you can answer that question in a very positive and aggressive manner. So we want to create brand evangelism through content in social media. That's the topic here. So how do we do that? Well, One is to leverage our own value. So first, to do that, we have to understand why people follow us on social media. So there are tons of surveys that have been done over the past 2 or 3 years, and the results have been really inconsistent. And most likely because they haven't asked it on an industry-specific basis. They've just asked the question, why do people follow you? And so when they answer that question, consumers will answer differently based on the business. So what we do know, there are 5 big topics. So the first is to learn about new products or services. So they like to follow businesses to be on the kind of cutting edge of what they offer. Next is to be entertained. So if you think about brands that have done really well on social the past few years, that have published, you think about Wendy's on Twitter, you think about brands like Arby's, a lot of the QSR, like restaurant industry, have done a good job. Nike does a good job. So they produce content to be entertained, to learn of promotions and discounts, so to know when those become available, to connect to people similar to themselves. So some brands create a cult following. So that's what that's about. And then to communicate with the brand. So people may have questions they want to ask. So those are the top 5 reasons why people follow you. The other question we have to answer is, why do people unfollow us? Well, we know that 56% of consumers will unfollow a business due to poor customer service. So that's not answering messages. That's producing just bad content, or not responding to questions, or being rude in your responses. So that's one way. Another reason consumers unfollow brands is they unfollow due to just bad content, and most of it's too promotional. So asking for the business just nonstop and not giving consumers any content that's helpful to them individually. And then the other reason is that brands talk too much about politics. So, of course, we run a number of social media campaigns, and just recently I saw a brand, not a person, a brand, publish on a political Facebook post that was very aggressive. And so for that reason alone, I would probably never do business with them, whether I agree with their comment or not, because brands shouldn't go direct and talk directly about politics, and a lot of brands do. And that happens a lot with small businesses because the owners may accidentally post, or they may attach themselves so tightly to the brand that they don't realize that them and the company are 2 different things. So you have to be really mindful about what you post. And I also would say other reasons, having constantly, like, cross-promoting your brand with other brands, or constantly featuring one type of content over another, those are sort of the other reasons that people would unfollow brands. So this whole discussion is about how to build friendships and influence, but it's not in a self-help sort of way. What we really want to do is create value. So what information can you provide consumers to create value? And so think about what you provide them now. So what does your business do? So what products or services do you provide? And then how much of that? So not necessarily on the product side, but more on the services side, or on the answering questions sort of thing, FAQs sort of way. How can you answer the big questions for consumers that would provide value to them, right? So if they bought a product from you, can you post how to take care of it? Or if they received a service from you, can you give them best practices to make sure whatever that service was is maintained in some sort of way? So we really want to focus on providing value. But in return for providing value, we want followership on social, and we may even want additional information. So if we're reaching out to consumers and telling them we have a great new white paper, but in order to get it, they need to give us their contact information, then as long as it produces enough value, they may be willing to do that. So that could be an email address, contact information, something, but we want something in return. And so the next question that we get asked a lot is, which content channel should we use? Well, that depends. Depends on your audience, your business, content, your strategy. So your audience may listen to a frequent business podcast, and maybe you need to create one. I would say do that. Or maybe your audience uses TikTok frequently, and you need to create, and you want to create some informational and fun videos that might work. That's a good idea too. It just depends on your audience. So there's no way for me to do a presentation that says this is exactly what you should do, because the answer is different from everyone. So to give you some examples of that, so for instance, the Stater LE scooter. So the Stater is owned by a company out of California called Nantworks, and they produced a video in 2018 that went viral. So the creator, Nathan Allen, created a video in 2018, the product went viral. However, they weren't ready for production. It was really just a concept vehicle. And so Nantworks bought the company and is working to bring the product to fruition, and started that process back in last fall. However, instead of just sending out information, what we did is we created a landing page and asked people to sign up, saying, if you want to be the first to know about this particular product, fill out this form. And so you see the form on screen. We had 1,500 email addresses in the first month. So, and it's not because we didn't provide meaningful content. We did. You just had to sign up to get it and be the first to hear about it. Another way that we've done that is with Longstreet Clinic. So Longstreet Clinic is another client of Forum's. And as you know, many organizations during the COVID-19 pandemic over the past few weeks have shifted a lot of their communication to the web. And so what we tried to do is shift and bring some expertise to the web as well through Facebook Live. And so we held these meetings that had 3 to 4 physicians speaking about a given topic. And so this one was the first. It was about pediatrics and how to take care of your children during this time, and was extremely successful. And so those sort of things, which we're just giving away free information, but in the end, it shows the knowledge leadership that the doctors at Longstreet have, and gives an opportunity for consumers to respond at a later date for potential business. So we can talk about our value, the value we create, but we haven't talked about the consumer. And so the consumer can also leverage their influence on our behalf. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that the consumer is going to do this just because we ask them to. That's not how this works. We have to produce enough value to really push the consumer to want to share it. And so if you think about every individual who follows you on social media, every single one of them are different. They have a different job. They have a different followership. So the people that they're friends with are different. And so if we know that, then how can we allow them to use their influence on our behalf? And so when we say influence, it's really the capacity to have an effect on someone. So we all know that word of mouth marketing is an extremely effective way to go about promoting a business. If someone tells someone else about your business, then they're more likely to do business with you. And so how do we leverage that, though, in a way to benefit us or to give consumers information that they would want to share? So it is possible for a business, an individual, for anyone to have thousands of followers but no influence at all. And so you could have 2,000 people follow you on Facebook, but that doesn't mean that anybody reads your posts. But you could have a few hundred people that follow you, and every single one of them read them. So that's what influence is about. It's really about how close are your ties to these followers, so that way they'd want to share your content. And so you can pay for this. So you can reach out to social influencers online and have them post on your behalf, post about your business, and you can pay them. You can pay them anywhere from $10 for 1,000 followers up to $250,000 for a single post. But most businesses don't want to do that. And part of the reason why is because just because they follow them doesn't mean that they have true influence. So if you look at this simple chart here, you'll see mega influencers may have 500,000 impressions when someone posts. Like if Kim Kardashian posts, think about how many people actually see that post. But how close is she to those individuals, and how much trust do they have when she talks about brands, and whose reputation does she care about, hers or yours? Where brand advocates, those that are closest to our brands, they may have a smaller reach, but their engagement's much higher. They may be willing to post more often. You may not even have to pay for it. And there's a lot of trust with the individuals that they post to. And for some, if you reach out and say, hey, I would love for you to post this on our behalf, I'd be willing to give you a month of service for free. Or I may be willing to give you a free t-shirt or something very simple. They believe that they're getting a VIP treatment. So it's much, much different. So if you think about social influence in those terms, so the top graph represents the paid social influencer, where they may not have much affinity for the people that they're posting to, right? They don't know them. They're just posting and those people consume their content. And some people may love it, some may not, just in terms of every brand that they post about, because they tend to make it really obvious if they're posting about a brand or a promotional post. Versus reach. They reach tons of people. And so you'll see that they have really weak interpersonal ties. But if you are close to the consumer, so it's someone that does have high affinity for your brand, their reach may not be as wide, but because of those strong interpersonal ties, the people that they share it with may share it as well, and they may share it, and so on. So even your reach could be broader if done effectively. So we know that companies are focusing on micro-influence, which are those few paid people that you might pay that are more locally based, or brand advocates who would post on your behalf for free. And we know that those sort of people are 4 times more likely to get a comment on a post than a macro-influencer or someone that has hundreds of thousands or millions of followers. So if we know those things are true, then here's the idea. We really want to expand our sphere of influence beyond ourselves. We want to think about the ways that we can do that without spending a whole lot of money in creating, if nothing else, like a celebrity endorsement. We're not really looking for that. We want to drive people that actually have influence with our consumer base. So I would consider that next level brand evangelism. Right? We don't want to reach just those that follow us. We want to create content in such a way that they want to share it, and that's word of mouth marketing. So we do also know that consumers are also 3 to 7 times more likely to share your mistakes than your value. And so if a consumer doesn't like you, they certainly will talk about it. So this isn't an easy way to go about marketing, but it can be extremely effective. So you also can be really clever here. Sometimes it's just seeing themselves in you, right? Because we've spoken a great deal about value, but value can sometimes just be seeing themselves in your efforts. And so a good example of that was a project we did with Kids Dentistry. Kids Dentistry is a small dental practice here in North Georgia. They have multiple offices. And what we did for them was we built a campaign around their patients. So their patients are children because they're a pediatric dentistry. And so the strategy was focused on content. Can we take photos of children in the office and share them? But can we share them in a way that they would share them? So we know that children really enjoy things like Facebook Messenger for kids. They enjoy playing on the text messages and looking at GIFs and stickers and those sorts of things that are available on those communication apps. And so we actually leveraged that and created the Say Cheese campaign. So what we did was we take a picture of not every day, not every child that comes in the office, but we take photos of those children and we post them on an infrequent basis and just say cheese, meet our friend Annabelle, right? She came for her first dental visit, really proud of her. So those sort of things. But here's the thing, what we know about kids, parents love their children and grandparents love their grandchildren. And if you post a picture of a child on Facebook, someone's going to share it. And so we use that knowledge to build a campaign where parents were really sharing the brand story of kids' dentistry for us by just posting their children. And they're very positive about their experiences, enjoy being patients at kids' dentistry, and so it's a very effective campaign. And we have boosted these posts and spent very little to do it, but they've been very, very effective. Another good example would be that of Riverbend Church. So Riverbend Church is based in Gainesville as well. And so the weeks of Easter and Christmas tend to be a church's largest attendance weekends. However, at Riverbend, the week after Easter, the church had over 4,400 views of its online service. They typically have 300 to 400 people in service on a Sunday. So they had 4,400 views. That's 4.5 times the number of their followers, which was a little over 900. And 10 times the Sunday attendance, with over 8,000 people seeing a post. But here's the reason why. They didn't spend any money to promote it. They had 56 shares. So if you have 985 followers and 56 of them share it, that's really impressive. So that's how they've found success. And so having content shared by your followers because they believe in your business is another good way to spread your message. So tracking success. So, we talked about brand evangelism, content, and social media, but how do we know if it's actually working? Well, we want to focus on value over vanity. So we want to track things that force us to change. So if we just track the number of followers we have on Facebook or the number of likes that we have, what decisions will you make because you have that information? Some of you may not make any decisions because you have that information. It's just nice to know. We don't want information that's just nice to have. We want things that will make us improve or change our behavior to make it better. So if we look at awareness, so how are you doing with your current prospective audience? Well, we can track audience growth rate, the speed at which we're gaining new followers, but we don't keep up with count, right? So if we keep up with count, if we see, let's say we see 10 new followers in a week, well, that might sound all well and good. But if we have 100,000 followers and we only drew 10 more in, why? Why is our content being shared more often to drive more followers? We should be growing at a faster rate. Next would be post reach. So how many have actually seen a post since it went live? So Facebook's algorithm calculates how often people look at a post, and that determines how often they will see your next post. So if you think about this number, measure of post reach, so how many people actually saw your post, divided by the total followers that you have, that's your post reach percentage. If that number is really low, what type of content did you post? Was it just text? Did you just type in text and post it? Did you post it with an image? Did you post it with a video? What was it? If it was a video, how long was it? Because those sorts of things can be telling, okay, well, I need to produce more content like this because it performs better than content like, something else. There are also other things we can track if we're looking at social monitoring. So we can track things like share of voice. So how many times our brand is mentioned versus our competitors and those sorts of things, but only if we really want to invest in social. Some of those tools can be anywhere from, free if you're just tracking yourself, versus if you want to track competitors, it could be as much as, they're $100 to $200 a month or more. There's some platforms that could be even thousands of dollars a month. Next is engagement. So you may remember that people track likes, comments, and shares. Well, we also can break those down into more meaningful numbers. So applause rate. So how often is your brand positively acknowledged? So we can look at the total approval actions divided by the total followers on a given post. An approval action would be like a like. a love, the new care symbol, the wow, the laughing face, depending on the post. So that's an approval action divided by total followers. So we know how many people are actually clapping when we post. Next is average engagement rate. So out of all those reactions, comments, and shares, how often do people engage with our posts? So you take your total reactions, comments, and shares on a post and divide by total followers, and you can look at what the engagement rate is. So typically on Facebook, the engagement rate average should be 0.5% to 1%. On Instagram, it should be 3 to 6%. If we know that information, then we can, okay, well, this post wasn't highly engaged. Why? This post was highly engaged. Why? And try to discern which ones work for us and which ones don't. Next is amplification rate. So how willing are our followers how willing are they to share content for us and to associate with our brand? So total post shares divided by total followers. So you take a post, any post that you've made on Facebook or Instagram, or Facebook because we're talking about shares. So take that post, how many times has it been shared divided by the total followers? That was the amplification rate for that post. These can range because it really depends on how many followers you have and some other things. But, if we see a post that gets amplified at a 5%, 10%, 20% rate, that's really great. So we really want to look for creating content that's going to amplify. Next is a virality rate. So did our post drive influence? So we take the number of shares divided by the number of post impressions for an individual post, and that's our virality rate. And so that will help us see if content is being spread, and if it's shared, does that group then share it again? And so that really helps with virality. Some other metrics we can look at to measure how do customers feel about our brand. Well, do we easily get customer testimonials? So that's a pretty easy thing to measure. And I'm not going to go into detail with Net Promoter Score, but that measures customer loyalty. It's a very effective, internationally known measure and can be effective to know because the closer we get to 100% means the more of our customers who love us. So we really need to, I'd say most brands need to at some point do Net Promoter Score surveys on a, I would say frequent to semi-frequent basis. And then the last thing I'll mention is content metrics. So is your content engaging enough? So let's say that you create this amazing blog post that you really want people to engage with, and you think that once they read it, they'll come back for more. Well, we can track average time on page for that page. So how long do they stay on it? Do they read all of it? We can track bounce rate. So bounce rate would be, do they go to that page and immediately leave, or do they stay to read more from other pages on your website? So that's a good measure, but it's possible that they read it and leave. But the other question is, do they come back? So new versus returning users. So do we drive a ton of new users, but they never come back? Or do they eventually return because you've gotten their attention? So we can look at those measures, and while they'll be different for every business, we can see which ones are moving and which ones aren't. Then the last thing I'll say on content is email. So there are other things we can track too, other than things in Google Analytics, but again, it's content dependent, what we're trying to produce. But with email, if we're working to grow a subscriber list, we can track subscriber growth, unsubscribes, opt-outs, forwards, and just see, is our list growing? Is it not? Are people leaving us once they get our emails? And then is the content being shared across the web because it's being forwarded? So outside of that, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, nick@forumspeaks.com, or at Professor of Life on Twitter, or find me on LinkedIn, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.